Nintendo is selling the Switches like crazy. Um, Nintendo Switch outsold both the PS4 and Xbox One combined in December, which is a bananas idea. And last year, Mr. Kimishima, CEO of Nintendo, said that they were going to try and sell 20 million Switch units this fiscal year. The fiscal year began in April of 2018, and it goes until March 31st of 2019. And Nintendo is expected to really be down to the wire as to whether or not they're going to be able to sell those 20 million Switch. Well, Mr. Furukawa, who took over when Mr. Kimishima retired, he is now the current CEO, president of Nintendo, and he was talking to the Sankei News. Now, this was translated by Nintendo Everything, and here's the important quote. He was asked about the 20 million Switch units and how close they were to the goal. He said that it was ambitious before, and when he first said that, I said, well, maybe he's saying, look, it's an ambitious goal, we might get there, like he was hedging his bets, but he wasn't ruling it out. And as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year, I think Nintendo's confidence is getting better and better. Some people were suggesting that Nintendo reduced the price of the Nintendo Switch, bring it down from $299.99 to maybe $249.99. If you bring it down by $50, or maybe do a pack-in game, then you might move enough to hit that 20 million goal. And when Mr. Furukawa was asked about this, he said, "It is an extremely ambitious but worthwhile achievement. So we will maintain this goal." So they're not changing their goal. They're sticking with it. And he also says, Nintendo Switch is our primary sales objective, and we are not considering a successor or a price cut at this time. So what does that mean, not considering a successor? A lot of people have been talking about a new version of the Nintendo Switch, maybe with a slightly bigger screen, not a bigger body, but a slightly bigger screen. So you kind of shrink the bezels, kind of like Apple does with, their phones or their iPad. They maintain the same body size, but they push the screen out to the edges more. And it's not just Apple; it's a lot of handheld portable electronics makers do that same thing. So people were suggesting that maybe Nintendo would do that. And that would spur a lot of sales from people who already have Switches, as well as people who have been holding off, because there's a lot of people who they read those rumors and they're like, I'm not going to buy a Switch right now because I don't want to have buyer's remorse. I don't want to buy that system and then have Nintendo announce right away, oh, here's the new one with the slightly improved whiz bangs in it. And I totally get that. In fact, I had a conversation with somebody, I would say probably back in October. We were kind of going back and forth on Twitter. He was saying he was going to hold off. He didn't want to get a Switch yet. And I was saying, well, I don't think that they're going to improve it. And even if they did improve it, these are the reasons why it wouldn't really matter to the end consumer. And somebody who already has a Switch shouldn't really feel buyer's remorse from getting not getting the newer and upgraded version. Because at the end of the day, I think most of the things that they do when they move to a new version of the Switch are not going to be things that the end user cares about a lot. And I never really subscribed to the idea that they would make it a bigger screen, just because when you make the screen bigger, you don't want to increase the resolution, because if you increase the resolution, then now if you increase the resolution of the screen, then games that are written for 720p now have to be updated to work with the new resolution, and that's going to cause problems right there. And then if you just make the screen bigger without increasing the resolution, then things will start to look blurry on that screen. And so I never really believed that Nintendo was going to be updating the screen anytime soon. I thought maybe they might switch to something that uses less power, making the battery last a little bit longer. Maybe they could pack more battery in there in order to make the battery last a little bit longer. But at the end of the day, if you do that, now you're increasing the weight of the system. And I think right now it's kind of at a sweet spot. Nintendo's engineers did a great job with the Nintendo Switch. So I don't think, or I never thought that Nintendo was going to be bringing out a brand new console version of the Switch. And it seems like I was right, because here's Mr. Furukawa saying we're not considering a successor. Now, what does that sentence not mean? It doesn't mean that Nintendo's not working on it. It just means that they're not bringing it to market anytime soon. That's something that they'll do when sales start to drop off. They're going to wait. They're going to sit on it and wait. And that also doesn't mean that they're not working on the next console, whatever comes after the Switch is done. Almost immediately upon shipping the Switch, probably prior to shipping the Switch, Nintendo had engineers hard at work on the next hardware platform that they were going to bring about, because this is not something that happens quickly. That's why you look at like Xbox and you look at PlayStation, and they still have not responded to the Switch. In the past, those two companies have responded to what Nintendo does quite often. Nintendo brings out an analog joystick. PlayStation adds those to its controllers. Nintendo brings out motion control. Xbox brings out Kinect. PlayStation brings out their Move controllers. Nintendo brings out a system that is a dockable, portable system that can also be played on your TV. I think at some point in the future, both PlayStation, most likely PlayStation, maybe not Xbox, will end up doing something similar down the road. But development time when coming up with brand new hardware takes so long that it has to start like right away. So when Mr. Furukawa says they're not considering a successor, that means that they're not bringing anything to market anytime soon. And he's basically saying that so that everybody knows, hey, if you've been holding off on buying a Switch, this is a total mind game that he's doing. If you've been holding off on buying a Switch because you're afraid that we're going to bring out something that's better right after you buy it, don't be. It's fine. We're not going to do that anytime soon. So I actually expect this comment is probably the most important comment right there, that and the price cut. They're not planning a price cut. They don't want people to be afraid that they're going to go out and buy a Switch at $299.99 and then the next day have Nintendo lower the price to $259.99. That would really tick people off. I know it would tick me off. I would feel like I threw away some money. So by him saying this, I expect there to be a slight bump in Switch sales near the end of the fiscal year. And I think that this was a really good plan on Nintendo's part. So I expect that Nintendo, I think that they're going to hit that 20 million goal. I think this comment is going to help that. And I think that at the end of the day, Nintendo is doing a great job with the Switch.